Hello everyone and welcome to our festive webinar. Today we're going to be taking a look at Yamdu as it currently stands and maybe doing a little recap of everything that's been added to the system over the course of 2025. We might even also mention a few things on the roadmap for 2026 as well. So this is Mick from Yamdu. Today I'm going to give you a little presentation first, and then we'll jump directly into the system and take a look at a few things in more detail. So first of all, as we always like to point out, creativity invites chaos, and we want to help you manage that chaos as effectively as possible. So we want to provide the #1 content production hub for next level collaboration. And you can see here that there are many challenges with every sort of visual project. They run from managing multiple projects at once to avoiding data silos, making sure that everything is available, making sure that you're not switching constantly between different platforms, and wearing yourself out as you're trying to find information and manage everything effectively. And we also want to make sure, of course, that we reduce the number of phone calls and emails necessary in order to find information. And of course with Yamdu, especially with some of our more recent tools, we make it easier to manage contracts, to do time tracking, and to manage travel for the cast and crew. And of course, because information is often so difficult to manage, it ends up being hard to find or lost, or finding the information can take a lot of time. We want to make sure that's not always the case, and we've built a platform to avoid that directly. So, do you actually know what tools your crews are using? It's a question we often ask our community when people are first exploring Yamdu. The answer generally is no. They don't know. They understand that people are using different things to manage their particular area of expertise, but they don't ultimately know what tool is being used. So that's certainly something we want to avoid, because we can bring everything together into one platform. The information then is kind of collectively stored in one location. So you could use lots of isolated solutions, or you could simply use Yamdu instead. And that's the reason why we built the system. It's built by filmmakers for filmmakers of every description, and I think we can find a workflow for everyone under the structure that we provide. So Yamdu is designed to be your single source of truth. Everything in one location, everything under one roof, everything is not scattered across various different platforms, and it just aligns everyone from the beginning. We also want to help with cutting out the dull bits from pre-production especially, so basically making it much easier to kind of manage information the whole way through. And it's not just pre-production, of course, that goes from development all the way through to delivery. And if we can avoid lots of emails and make interactions exist within Yamdu directly, then of course we're bringing everyone together and avoiding lots of friction and getting rid of all of these pain points that people constantly complain about. So today we look at many different things, but I guess we'll touch on various themes within Yamdu. The first of which is simultaneous project management, having multiple projects running in one location at various stages of completion. You have then the inbuilt communication, so you can directly discuss things with your colleagues and tag people and basically keep on top of everything in one place as well. You can manage your information. You don't have to use external platforms for sharing in video files and documents and everything else. You can do that directly within Yamdu, or at least link from Yamdu to external areas. And then you can distribute through the system as well. So if you need to send information out, you can do it. You can watermark information. You can do all of these things quite effectively. And that's something that we've really expanded on over the course of 2025, and we're very happy with the feedback thus far. Then, of course, you have the core Yamdu features as they've always been for quite a long time. Of course, breakdowns, shooting schedules, and call sheets. One of the big changes we've made this year is the addition of an AI breakdown function, which we're currently in testing phase. We're seeing how it all functions. We've got a lot of very useful feedback from our community already, so we're really excited about where that will go over the course of the next year as well. So if we could kind of summate everything and describe what we want to do with Yamdu, these are a few words I think that we would emphasize. Everything is centralized. Everything is stored in one location, It's all structured. There's structures for departments, for positions, for information. It's scalable. A producer or a production coordinator can use all of the tools Yamdu provides. Someone in a certain department can then use the 3 or 4 things that they need. So it's highly scalable even within one project. But of course, you can have a very small version of Yamdu for a short film and a very elaborate version of Yamdu for a much more grand project. And finally, it's agile. It's something that you can kind of scale up and scale down as required, as well in terms of the plans that Yamdu offers. So we've changed a few things on that front as well, and we think that's gone quite well too. So moving again forward and looking at a few other points, today we'll take a look at the various areas of production. And in pre-production, you can see we have script development, we have the AI script tagging that I mentioned, shot listing, and of course storyboarding. And then we have the file sharing, the casting, location, management, all of the creative departments that are involved in this process as we gather everything we need to move forward into the stage of production. And you can see here too that we have the company and project calendars to manage everything and align everyone. And we have very nice workflow templates. So if you're working on an animation project or a documentary or a feature film, there's a way of working that we provide that we think is quite beneficial. You can see too here that we have the crew communication function as well. We have time tracking. So of course the Yamdu app is there, and it's grown in use over the last few years. It used to be, notifications, call sheet details, things like this, and now you also have time cards. So that's one of the main new features we've added, and people can directly add information and log their times in Yamdu on their mobile phone, for example, as they need to on any project. We have asset management, of course. We have the production calendar for mapping out everything that should occur over the course of production. And then, of course, when it comes to the actual planning of the shoots, you have the shooting schedule, you have day out of days and sides, and then you can use all of the information that you've accumulated to generate call sheets that are very elaborate, that have all of the information you need, that have a template that you can reuse. So we're just trying to take as much friction out of the equation and make everything a little more seamless as you progress through your projects. And then in post, of course, we have the ability with the Gantt planning to organize all of the various steps along the way as you move towards delivery. You have the video review function, which is again built into the structure of files and documents. Then you have file sharing and versioning and all of the things you would expect in order to kind of manage things as they progress over time. And again, with the communication function, you can make sure everyone's up to speed. You can make sure you flag certain things with various people. And at the end of the process as well, when you finally need to gather the names and information of all of the people who've helped with the project, you have the credit function as well. So let's move directly into Yamdu now, and we can show you how we help you keep your eyes on the big picture and how you can leave the details to us. So let's jump into Yamdu now. I hope you can all see my Yamdu interface right here. And you can see, for example, that we have my interface here. You have all of this detail. I'm not in any one particular project right now. I'm simply above the project level. And yeah, I can see here, okay, I've got various events, I've got multiple projects, which is of course important, and I have my company area as well, where all of the information from my projects is being collected and stored, like the actor and location databases, and all of the details of the various people I work with are being just saved immediately and passively in the address book for future reuse or for future reference. So before we do anything else, let's just jump into one particular project, and we can always zoom back out again at a later point. So here you see I have my dashboard for Love at Sunset. This is a feature project, but it's really not really relevant what kind of project this is, because the structure is there for any kind of project you would work on within Yamdu. So you can see here I have some information, I have some detail inviting me to the project, I have reminders about various meetings, I have my tasks quite clearly displayed, and I have a live feed too of information coming into the project. So all of the detail that's being added, I can see it, I can jump directly to it as required, and I just have an immediate sense of how things are progressing in this project. I better be quick too, because I have a meeting, as you can see, in about 44 minutes. So let's start with the general tools within Yamdu. The very first area is the crew list. And you can see here, as you would expect, a nice clean list of all of the various crew members and the departments they're involved in. We can see their contact information. I'm looking at this from the perspective of a producer, so I see all information. I'm an administrator on the project. Of course, information is carefully managed so that nobody sees anything they shouldn't. So I can see the departments, I can see all of the relevant information, I can add people here. I can also see an overview of access rights as well. So here you can see, for example, that I have a list of everyone working on the project. I can see the access that they have for files and documents, for sensitive information, and for the company database as well. In some cases, as you can see, these are project-specific users who will not be looking at anything at the company level. I can show you here too that we have quite a new feature, which is the ability to limit project access by a certain date. So for example, with Al Goldman, I can say directly that he's going to be finishing up in at the end of January, and basically at a certain point his access to the system should simply be ended, and in that case you can see the date quite clearly here. Of course, with our new time card feature, you can also see what the person's role is. Are they a user? Will they be accessing this feature, or will they be working in accounting or anything else? And because my shoot is not coming up this month, it's next month, I haven't finalized all of those positions, but you can see that I would have a nice overview here directly. And as well as that, I have lots of different icons here. Of course, there's always 3 levels. You can hide information completely, you can give someone read access, or you can give them write access as required. So here you have a very nice overview. This is again a new interface that's very recent, in fact, and it just gives you a great sense of what everyone can do within the system. It's that scalability I mentioned right at the beginning. You also see here too the list of external contacts. So we can see everyone that's working on the project who is not an active user, people that are just in the project that I might be distributing information to, for example. I can also see here the recruitment function. So if I'm looking for a line producer or any position, I can create the position before I know who will fill the role. And in this case, I created line producer. I even, added the access rights that should be there after the person is invited. And then I suggested various people, and maybe we then discussed whether Laura or Franklin would be the best fit. We decided that Laura was the person we would go with, and only the high-level members of production can see this. So basically we hired Laura, and at that point she had immediately the access rights we wanted her to have, and she's added to the project. We've also added job ads here as well. So this is an area that's been developed quite a lot quite recently, and I think that's a very useful and interesting function. So in addition to these things here, you can see in Crew, you can overview or oversee the various creative departments and the units if you have multi-unit shoots as well. So this is a nice clean area where all of the key information is displayed quite clearly, and you can then just change things, update access rights, keep track of who can see and do what, and kind of roll with the punches as the project develops. I'll come back to time cards a little bit later, but first let's move on and look at some of the other general area tools within Yamdu. So we have here as well, of course, files and documents. And here is the area where you can store and save everything. You can manage all of the detail, you can upload files, you can keep everything in one place. It could be contracts, it could be development information, could be script details. But here in contracts, for example, we would be able to see all of the contract information for all of our different crew members. So I can always scroll through here and see exactly what information we have. Let's say for Natalie Farmer, we can see all of the detail here. We have the general information, we have the staff form, and we can scroll through and see, what exactly is the agreement we have reached with her. Whether it's general information, whether it's the contract detail, whether it's the contract itself, whether it's the staff form with lots of different pieces of information that we might need for HR or just in general. You have all of these different functions, and it's a great way to get information into the system. You can invite someone, have them fill out their details, and it's saving then the production office a lot of work that would otherwise be spent gathering that detail manually. Of course, later we'll take a look at time tracking and payroll, but of course you have note and notification overviews here for each user too. So that's one aspect of files and documents. The other aspects, of course, are managing information. So if we have, for example, images, files, scripts, things like this, Not only can we store that information in Yamdu, but we can comment on these things, we can open up the various files, we can send them through the system, we can watermark them, we can communicate. All of these different things are built into the system. So we'll look at distribution in more detail in a moment, but you can see here immediately everything is designed to kind of share that information out and make sure the people that need to see information see it quite clearly. You can also link to information too. So if you're sharing information externally, that's perfectly fine. You can just, with one link, jump from Yamdu to any other source of information, which is again something that's very valued by our users. And everywhere throughout the system, you've probably seen this little area previously, you have an overview of who can see what where. You don't have to go back to the crew each time. You can just simply jump in here and say, okay, Anna has read access, Brian has write access, and so on. So let's move on now to distribution. And this was something that was long in the works. There was lots of suggestions. People were really asking for this quite a bit. Because what we found out is that to distribute information, first of all, is not quite easy, especially to track that information. And the other thing, of course, is that people need to watermark things. In the film industry, in any sort of creative project, information is quite sensitive, and you can't just distribute something without a watermark that could then be distributed further without your control. So here you can see that you have distribution. You can see here some of the things I've recently sent, when I sent them, who I sent them to, the recipients of these things, and then the various files that I sent and the status, whether it's been delivered, whether there are issues. Please ignore the errors in this case, as these are all fake users. But you can see here, for example, if we go to sides, that I can see the message I sent, what was sent, when, all of this detail. And if I want to add a new distribution, you can see here that I have all of my cast and crew to draw from. I have all of this information right here. I can select departments as a whole. I can select individual users. I can add subject lines and messages. And then I can choose whether to add a file from the project, for instance, and just select something that already exists within Yamdu. Or I can select a file on my laptop instead, for instance. I can also say whether I want to watermark files, which I can also do in project settings, and I can send a copy to myself to get a clear sense of what a person will see. So if we have files as well that are slightly bigger, then we can send them with a download link rather than via email, of course. So you can save drafts, you can come back to them later. You can also see all of the mailing lists that you've previously created as well. And when you're sending, you see the recipients quite clearly. You can also distribute to people who are not in your existing recipient list as needed. So you have a great overview, a way of managing this. And if you send a watermarked file, for example, even if it's a 200-page script, every page of that script will be watermarked with the name of the recipient, and it will just generate that. Even if there's thousands of watermarks to be created, you'll see a loading image. It will display how things are progressing, how the things are being sent out, and so far we found that it's run very effectively. In addition, of course, in the distribution area, we have announcements, so you can communicate information to the team, whether you want to just say welcome to the project, whether you need to warn them about something, or whether you just need to send a reminder. Don't forget your QR code if you want access to the location. All of these things, again, can be done directly within the system. And here as well, because it was asked for, it came a little later, we have an overview of all of the different mailing lists as well. So you can always change this, update this as required, and you can kind of bring new people into the fold when they're added to the project as well. So as ever, maybe something many people are already well aware of, we have task management. We have the ability to oversee all of the different things you're tasked with. You can see the deadlines for all of these different tasks. You can see who they're assigned to. And of course, these all appear directly within the project calendar too. So you can communicate within a task, you can share information, you can kind of check in and see what's happening in real time. And as I mentioned, everything feeds into the project calendar. So we can see here, for example, where are we right now? Are we in, the first draft? Are we having PPMs every week? When are the directors department meeting? What kind of deadlines do we have coming up? All of these different pieces of information. And of course you have the production calendar information as well. Whether we're doing the first draft of the script, or we're at a later process, or we're doing the schedule, you can just get a very clear sense, and everyone on the project can get a clear sense of where things currently stand. So we've seen how you can manage all of this detail and keep track of that information. The other thing I would maybe jump to right now is, where is this script first draft information coming from? It's coming from the production calendar. So this is the classic Gantt chart view where you have an overview of how the project should develop over time. So we can zoom in a bit and see the process, a long scripting process, and then into pre-production and so on, and then forward into the shoot itself. And I can change this information. I can move steps forwards and backwards. I can say, in fact, the final draft is actually a very short phase, pre-production 2, and we can kind of play around, move things, add dependencies between steps, and just move all of this detail so that everything is interconnected. One step can follow another, or we can have multiple steps running concurrently. So you can always kind of play around with this however you would like to. And this now, because I'm playing with it, might not align directly with the shooting schedule I've already created. I can always link those two things again very easily at any point. But it just gives you a great overview, and nobody's going to be questioning when everything is done or what the current status is. You can see what the plan is over the course of the production, how the project should move forward over time. So those are all of the various kind of planning general functions within the system. But of course, Yamdu is built for visual content and visual projects. So let's look at the film-specific aspects of the system. And the first one, of course, is the script area. When I import my script, this short script as you see here, I have a little overview of each of the various scenes. They're color-coded according to scene description, the environment types. I can immediately see the script right here, and I can see all of the breakdown elements that I've added. So because this is quite fresh, I can see, for example, here that I can run through, I could highlight something, I could edit the script. I could say that the old map, for example, is a prop that I need to add in any scene that it's mentioned, for example. So you can do all of this. You have this manual breakdown function that's built directly into the system. We partner, of course, with Final Draft, so a Final Draft import always works really well. It gathers all of the set information and character details and so on, and then we can do the creative aspect as well. But the new thing that we've added this year is the AI function. And this is something that we're testing, as I mentioned. And for example, in scene 2 here, when I click Get Element Suggestions, this is what I see. This is the outcome. Instead of things being directly highlighted, they are kind of enclosed here, as you see, and they are, for now, suggestions. We're not just randomly shoving everything that the AI finds directly into your list of elements. You decide what makes sense. So you can see if I open up props here, all of these things are there for me to review. So imagine rather than manually adding everything, I simply go in here and check and see, okay, the system has found many interesting things, and I could say, yes, I need the bottle of champagne, for example. Yes, it's a prop, and I can add this. I can add all elements at once if I think that makes sense, or I can also reject information that is not relevant as well. So I can go through this list and basically choose what I think makes sense, and the system is just updating and adding these things as actual elements right now, and they turn then, as you can see, into highlighted and colored text. So this is a really exciting function. You can do the entire script in one go, you can do an individual scene in one go if you prefer, all of these different things. The other thing you can do here as well is work with, for example, the synopsis function. So you can put a script directly into Yamdu, and you can say, okay, I don't want to kind of manually now have to figure out the best synopsis, just do it for me. You can generate a synopsis like this. It will kind of give you an example of what it thinks the story is about, that we've found to be quite effective, and the feedback has been very positive. And if I don't like it, I can always regenerate it and see if other things are picked up. If I change the script, I can also generate a new synopsis to add in other information. And the other thing I have here is the script change function. So here I can see, for example, what has changed. I imported the first script and it's all new information. Then maybe I made some changes and there's a new version where the set is updated in scene 3, for example, and Fareed has been added to the scene. And as I progress and as more things change in the project, you can always come back here and refer to this and see, okay, what did we change in scene 6 2 drafts ago? You have a nice kind of running tally, or you can see the latest versions and all of that information quite easily here. And of course, because we work with telenovelas and soaps and all the rest of it, you can sort things by ID and unit and storylines and all of these different things. You've all of these different functions to manage kind of like romantic storylines, or you can have kind of like sadder storylines or funny storylines, and just kind of manage these things effectively. See how they look, see what these things are, and manage them as you need to. And you can color by all of these individual things too. So I can see, for example, how things look colored by set or by location or by anything else. So let's just jump back to environment type here. But so far the AI tools in the script area have been very warmly received. We're really happy about that, and we're really hoping that we can continue to add more features and refine a few things over the course of 2026. So here we have all of our scenes. We can also see them in more of an overview structure like this. So I can see directly whatever information I deem necessary, whether it's what columns should be displayed, whether it's the storylines, anything that I would like to see displayed I can see here. And I can also edit information. I can bulk edit details. If I have to change a set or I have to change some detail, I can edit it here and apply that change to everything in one go. So I think that's a very useful feature, and again, this just gives you a different perspective on everything. As ever in Yamdu, I would be able to add shots per scene. We have lots of shot-based content as well, where I could have a shot that leads to a storyboard. I could also create content items as well, for example. So I would be able to kind of just add all of these things, whether we're doing behind-the-scenes footage or we're doing interviews with the team or whatever else. I would be able to kind of manage all of that in one place. So if it's a piece of content and it's not scripted or shot-based, that's not a problem. In Yamdu, you can work with all of these different scenarios. So we have commercial filmmakers, we have people working on documentaries, features, every type of project is covered within the system. And we also have, of course, and I'll just show you briefly in project settings, the ability to work with episodic features. So you would have then, instead of just all of the information in one place, you could use the episodic filter. You would then have a list of all episodes. You could assign crew members to individual episodes. You could apply or send cast members to individual episodes. And you can even say that certain information is only relevant to certain episodes, and the same with the shooting schedule and everything else. So we have people working on elaborate, recurring content like soap operas, telenovelas, and they use this function for that, but also for kind of like shorter form or shorter run things like a 6-episode miniseries or a 22-episode sitcom, for example. All of these things are worked on directly within Yamdu. So of course, as I'm working on my script, whether it's manually tagging things or using the AI function, all of that information is then filtering through to the various creative departments. So my list of characters is collected, and then I have the ability to cast each character. I can say, okay, I have a character called James, and within that I would be able to suggest several different actors for the role, and then choose the actor, in this case David Grondin, that I think is the best fit. So you have all of these abilities. You can see all of the various actor suggestions that we've considered for this role. You can see the day out of days because I've already created a shooting schedule, and you can see that he's working on 3 of the 4 shooting days that we've currently planned. Of course, in the shooting schedule that would be immediately flagged as inefficient, and we try and change that. But you have the day out of day detail here. I can generate sides if I want to in the script area just by clicking back there and then directly on the sides function, and I can just see everything quite clearly in one overview. So in addition to the character overview, we have the actor overview, where we can see everyone that we've considered on the project. These are all of the people we've pulled in, that we've considered for various roles. Some of them are cast, some of them have agents, all of the other details, they're all collected here. And these, of course, are sent out directly to our company database for future reuse as well. So all of that, I think, is very beneficial, that you can track and manage all of this detail effectively, and it's a very visual aspect. The same goes, of course, for all of our costumes, and we can see the day out of days across the board too, just for clarity, just to see who is working when did they start and end, are they all working on various days, do they have like 1-day shoots, everything else. I can see this, and I can even filter for various schedules to see that information too. So that follows for everything else. For the costume area, we can see all of the costumes per character, and we can then track kind of the continuity, the changes, the outfits each person will have. For instance, the same with makeup and hair. We can see per person what's their default look. Do they have scars? Do they have different looks? Do we have to consider different things? Whether it's sweaty in a scene or bruised or wet after jumping out of the water in one of the scenes. You can kind of add that detail, add notes, and this goes for costumes as well. You can just kind of add the context, upload images, create different looks, add images for them. All of that, all of that information can be managed. And of course, we have all of our sets, and the sets can be then assigned filming locations. So, okay, in this shoot, for example, we're going to be primarily working at Ari Studios here in Munich. So you can see here that in this location, we can see where this is, we can see images of the location itself, we can kind of very easily see contact details and various information that would be relevant. We can see, of course, the day out of days for locations too. So everything is again collected, managed, stored in one location. We can communicate, we can upload files, we can do everything in one place. And you can see here too, for example, that the production design area allows you to kind of work on all of the different props and other elements like this. So we can say, okay, I tagged the old map in the script, and maybe then I upload several different suggestions, and we decide that map C is the best actual physical object for the narrative object old map. So again, this is the creative aspect. In pre-production, we have a list of things we need to find. We add the suggestions. The director, the DOP can have a look and say, I like this, I don't like that. They can vote for their best or their favorite things. They can rate the different objects, and then we can kind of select what it is that we work with. So it's collaborative, there's lots of communication, everything can be done directly within the system. So you have all of these creative department functions in addition to all of the breakdown elements as well. And as you work on all of these things, you can then move forward towards shooting scheduling, call sheet creation, all of these different things. But before we jump there, let's maybe take a look at a couple of relatively new features that we think have been very successful. We have the travel function. So as we move into production, we can see where everyone is at a given point. So where are they currently? Where did they start from? Where are they staying? As we prepare for a shoot, for example, we can go through the entire crew and see, you know, okay, they're traveling from one location to another. They're staying at this hotel for this period of time. That's the contact person at the hotel. That's the other people, or those are the other people that are staying there. Some of these journeys are approved, some of them are not. So I can go and see all of that detail. You know, are some people traveling together? Are they traveling separately? Where are they starting from and ending? And I can just kind of run through all of this detail and see every leg of each journey. You know, they took a taxi to the airport, they went to the hotel, they flew back. Here are the boarding passes, here are the different pieces of information, here's who's collecting them, here's the car they're traveling in. All of that information can be saved and stored and of course exported and sent to the individual people. So I can say, hey everyone, here's the itinerary, here are all of the boarding passes, here's where we meet on Wednesday morning, and here's what the next month is going to look like as everything gets more intense and we move towards production. So you have this great overview where you can see who created various journeys, the costs involved, and also the sustainability information as well. That's something that we've continuously been expanding upon, and we had a big sustainability update this year as well. But before we get there, you can see the various types of transportation that are used. If we have, you know, cars that we work with or vendors that we work with, you can see the accommodation types, so you can see where people are staying, places that they're being put up, whether they're kind of luxury hotels or mid-scale, and the contact information and phone numbers and all of this detail. And all of that filters into the sustainability area, where, for example, we can use multiple different calculators. So we could use the pair calculator if it's in the US, or we can use various other options as required. You get an overview then of where you're shooting, where people are coming from, where you're expending most of your CO2, all of this detail quite clearly here. So I can see, whether it's studio or gears or locations, the amount of CO2 being generated. I can see the subheadings. I can see how we figured out these things. We can kind of calculate by lots of different things, by assumptions, by costs, by consumption, and by external emission. So maybe you have very precise information, maybe you have slightly more vague information, but you can calculate according to the best practice. And again, I can choose from multiple different calculators, as you see here. We work with ClimaActive in Europe, we have the pair calculator, and we also work with the European Union on the media carbon calculator, which is something that you'll see a lot of in 2026, as well as we continuously work on this. So we have all of these things built directly into the system, all of these different functions, all of the different types of travel, all of the flights and the ground transportation and everything. And you can then say that, we want to de-emphasize certain types of journeys. We don't want private jets as much as possible. We would prefer if commercial flights are then, multiple people rather than individual people. We'd prefer if we can travel by train, especially in Europe and certain areas of the US, for example. And you have all of these different things that you can factor directly into the equation. But let's say that we've got all of that in order. We've done all of the creative things, all of the breakdowns, we've got all of the cast and crew in order, and now we're actually progressing directly towards shooting scheduling. Well, then we can go and create, as you see here, a shooting schedule. And we have, on this short project, a 4-day shoot. So you can see what this looks like right here. We've planned it out. We have, I can go into edit mode as well. We have the ability here to just say, okay, we're starting shooting at 9 or whatever. We have breaks at various points. We have this 4-day shoot. I can see all of the different people involved. I can see the locations, and I can then do many things. I can reorder strips. So immediately at the beginning, if I want to do a quick preliminary schedule, I can sort by set or by location, for example. If I want to automatically add day breaks, I can do that based on script pages. I can say, roughly speaking, we get through 2 pages of the script per day, so just create a day break every 2 pages. So you have all of these different things, and of course you can select the columns that you want to see displayed, because everything is interconnected when it comes to shooting scheduling. So these are all, I think, very useful functions, very important functions. And again, as a little sneak peek, you're going to see a lot of updates in 2026 with far more elaborate features and lots of interesting new things. So we're working on a big update of the shooting schedule that we're very, very excited about. The current shooting schedule is something that people have been incredibly positive about for many years, but I think we can add a lot of new features that would really take it to another level again. So that's something we're very excited about going into 2026. Of course, if this is episodic, I can sort the shooting schedule by episodes. I can create multiple shooting phases. I can break things up by units. I can do all of these different things right here. I can have multiple schedules if I wish to. And if I jump back to view mode here, one of the great things I can do is immediately create a call sheet. If I like this shooting day, if it's as I want it to be, I can click create call sheet, and it will take the crew details, the cast information, all of the call times based on the schedule I've created, and I can essentially reuse existing templates that are structured exactly how I like them, or I can just create like a fresh shooting day right now, and you can see what this does then. We have locations, cast, crew, all of the important information, the dude information, so why don't we just put that together for you? You have your company information, you have the locations we're shooting at, you have the scene descriptions and information, you have the various call times here. I'll just zoom a bit. You can see then the production design information as well, and we can move things, we can change things. We can say I have to update information, or I want to move calls under the header, or for example, I want to see the nearest hospital and the weather on this date. These are things that people say, they spend 5 minutes doing it every day and it annoys them. So why don't we just do it for you, take the location detail and apply some other information to it. And we can then click on all of the other elements here. So we have text fields, we have the crew information. There are lots of different details that you can add. I can add in the crew list, for example, at a certain point, the kind of classic page 2 crew list, so I can always move that down if I need to underneath the locations, and then it just shows me everyone that's involved and their contact information. We could also have the crew list with call times, I guess, which is maybe a better option for this, but you can choose exactly what should be displayed. You can save that call sheet, and when it's saved, you can then mark it as final and send it out to all recipients. So you will be able then to directly kind of send all of this out through the system. And yeah, you have all of these different functions. Also with the shooting schedule, when you create that, you can export to Showbiz Budgeting, another partner of ours. So you've all of these interconnections within Yamdu, but when I'm happy with the call sheet here, I would be able to just simply mark it as final and then send it to everyone. So I can say, okay, I'm not now saving this and sending it via another system. I'm simply going to do it directly. It takes a few seconds to gather all of that information, and then I can simply send it out right now and confirm. You can see here the full mailing list, everyone that should receive it, all of the details, and I have within my PAR now to distribute this call sheet. Each person then gets the call sheet with their call time, with a confirm button, so they can tell you directly whether they will attend or not, and I can then track also the sending report just as you saw in the distribution area and see what the current status is. Is everyone going to be on set? Is everything clear? Have they received it first of all, and have they confirmed that they will be there for the shoot? So those are all of the current Yamdu features. I think a couple of other things I want to kind of show you as well right now are the budgeting beta. We have an amazing interaction with Showbiz Budgeting. We're also playing around with some of the budgeting aspects here, so you can see and test the actuals versus the estimates, for example. So you can choose which way you would like to actually add that information. And you can see here too that within each of these you can then add lots of details. You have a top sheet, but you can also break this up into different project information. I can pull in all of the crew members, I can add rates, and I can also then add things like the fringes and the groups and the globals. And especially with the globals here, you can use Yamdu's dynamic globals. So we can actually say, because we have shooting schedules and production schedules in Yamdu, let's just link the information here. So if something is updated in the shooting schedule, we can then update it directly in the budgeting tool as well. We think this is something that doesn't really fully exist anywhere else, and it's going to be a very, very useful and interesting feature going forward. So again, this is something that's in testing mode right now. It's not a full-on all-in-one budgeting tool. It's more of the first step on that journey, but we're very happy with how it's currently done and how it's structured. So this is something, again, anyone who wants to take a closer look can play around with this, create a quick budget or create a more elaborate one, and see what the various options are with this tool. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, the other thing I'd like to point out is the time card function. So let's just show you here in the crew list to start with that each person, like David Albom here, has within their personal profile the usual information like crew and contract and staff form information, so I can see, okay, what's the relevant detail I need to be aware of for this person. But they also have time tracking and payroll. So when we have the time tracking function active, we have lots of different functions. First of all, we can choose a labor agreement template or create our own template based on whatever we think we prefer. So you can choose a template, you can select the union you're working with, for example, if necessary. You can add the contract time as well. So you can kind of go through here and see what works best. So for example, we can kind of decide what kind of regulations should be applied for this person, and then we can start tracking information. So we can say, okay, a person has a certain amount of base hours. We can say too that the person either has to or doesn't have to track their work times. And we can then set rates. We can say, okay, normal circumstances, this is how much the person gets paid on an hourly basis. If they go into overtime, it looks like this. And we can add all of the usual rules that apply. And we know from experience, lots of people use things like Excel to manage this. It gets incredibly messy. There are hundreds of tabs, and they're never quite sure if it's up to date. But with Yamdu, it will make this much easier. You can plan all of this out. You can add a time account in certain circumstances. You can add night premiums for night shoots, of course. You can track turnaround times, holiday premiums, all of this detail. It's incredibly elaborate. It factors in all of the various factors, the compounding, all of this detail, meal penalties as they apply, non-deductible breaks, all of these different things. So for each person, we can get a great overview. We can set details. We can manage per diems and re-rates and everything else. And then, of course, this person can use the Yamdu app to enter their information. They can log in essentially and click, start time in the morning. They can log out at their break. They can kind of, basically track all of the times that they've been working over the course of a day and then submit that directly through Yamdu. So just to give you the other view, and me as a producer and part of the, in this case, accounting department, I can oversee everything. I have the time card view. So here I can see my time cards, and I won't be shooting until January as you see here, but when I do start entering my times using the app, we'll see the worked hours, the worked overtime, the variance, the supplements, all of the different pieces of information that are necessary I can display here in one place. I can also see time cards on a daily basis, and I can then also see the time cards, and you can see the daily time cards here, for example, and the current status. We can, then submit information. So for example, a user can submit, the department or the production team can approve, or it can go directly to accounting, for example, who can sign off on payment. And you can push back and you can say, okay, that's incorrect. Please revisit that and update the information. You can also see with the personal time cards here, each individual person. I can see, okay, what does David's stats currently look like? What do they look like? And I can see a list here. Of course, we haven't started shooting, but when we do, we'll see all of this information just automatically added here for us to track, and we can either confirm or push back on what David has added. So it's an amazing overview, it's an amazing detail, and we can toggle between all of the various crew members as required, and we can export the information in many different formats as you see here. So this is something again that people were really crying out for, that they were very, very interested in, and I think this is a great way now for them to be able to play around with these things and see these things. So yeah, those are some of the latest features. I think time cards is a huge one that we've seen. It's applicable around the world. It takes into account lots of local labor agreements. You can customize it as required, and you have this incredible all-in-one overview where your users, your team essentially on the project, are adding information, doing the work, showcasing everything that they're doing day by day, and then we can confirm and manage and approve batches and everything, and basically manage all of that detail in one place as well. So again, this is a feature that everyone is welcome to jump in and test and get a feel for, all in one place. So I think that's for now a nice overview of Yamdu as it currently starts, including the kind of basic features that are across the board, some of the more pro features that you can either test or upgrade to, and of course just to kind of zoom out as we started at the beginning, outside of any particular project. Let's exit now Love at Sunset and just quickly point out that here back in our project database, or our company database, I'm sorry, we have again the overview of the access rights, the address book. I can go into the actor database. I can see the calendar across all projects. Everything is saved, reusable. We're thinking not just short term, project to project, but also long term. Everything feeding into one location. Where are we right now as a production company? How do all the projects coalesce in one place? How does it all function? So I think these are all of the various things that we've added over the course of the year. So we think now we have a great offering, many amazing features, many new things that will be worked on going into the new year. And essentially we also think that we have a plan that gives everyone with every type of production an in and an ability to work in Yamdu and see for themselves all of the benefit that Yamdu can provide. So it's been a real pleasure to show you all around the system and to showcase everything directly. We'll be doing lots more webinars over the course of the next year and focusing on, various things within the system. You can create payroll libraries. We have lots of, new database information. We'll be adding special things, and we've already added the Pro Producer feature to showcase many of these things. So if you want to immediately check out time card details or meal penalties or all of these different things or sustainability, just go to our YouTube channel and you can find all of the latest pro producer content there as well and get a really elaborate overview of all of the technical aspects of certain features. But today, as a little overview, I just want to say thank you again for joining. I hope you get a nice sense of where Yamdu currently stands in terms of the feature set. And if anyone has any questions, you can contact us. We can always do a guided webinar for you on a certain topic. We have onboarding, of course. And again, all we can say is thank you very much for being part of the Yamdu community, and we look forward to continuing to work with you into the new year. So enjoy everyone the holidays, and thank you very much for joining today.